everyone's suddenly realizing that if they have a Wikipedia page, it is turning up super often in those AI answers about them. And if they don't, then it is causing a bit of a gap. We hear a lot of people who want to have Wikipedia pages because it will help them with their AI visibility.
Hi, welcome back to SaaS Half Full, the only show serving B2B SaaS marketers. I'm Lindsay Groper, EVP at Panblast, and I will be both your host and bartender today. I had an awesome conversation today with Rhi Ruff, who is the founding partner at Lumino Digital. She and I are talking all things Wikipedia. Man, Wiki is having a moment. I know all of y'all want to be on Wikipedia, get a Wikipedia page. Spoiler alert, it is hard AF to get on Wikipedia today. They've always had a lot of integrity. They continue to have high integrity and guidelines on who and how you can get a Wikipedia page. So we're going to walk through the things that you can do if you're unable to secure a wiki page, and also talk a little bit about wiki data. So if you care to, grab a drink and join me as I speak with Rhi from Lumino Digital. Hi, Rhi. Welcome to SaaS Half Full.
Thanks so much for having me, Lindsay. I'm happy to be here.
I am so excited to talk about this topic. You have been helping us help our clients navigate this whole Wikipedia era because, wow, Wiki's back in a big way, having its moment for sure, and getting pretty exclusive. So we have a lot of questions from clients around how can they participate? How can they get a page? What's the likelihood? What do they need? Because in this AI era, certainly Wiki is being surfaced a lot as sources in the LLMs. So I want to dive into today just about this sort of new rules of Wikipedia, what brands can be doing today. And I also too want to get your thoughts on just more like future looking things as well. But before we do that, I do want to give our listeners an idea of who you are, what your role is. Now, I'm going to disappoint our listeners because, as you all know, I have a drink on this show every time for 5 years. The only time I didn't have a drink was when I had COVID and I was fighting through that. This time, guys, I had the stomach flu this weekend as of like Saturday, Sunday. Here we are Monday. I ate some toast this morning, but I cannot stomach having a cocktail at 11 a.m. coming off the stomach flu. So I'm letting you down, but I apologize. You know that I always stay true to the process. This is a last minute interview with Rhi, so I couldn't get her a cocktail kit anyway. So I am just drinking water this morning. So I apologize, but you know I'll be back next year, hitting 2026 in a big way. But Rhi, if you could, give us a quick background on sort of how you got to be in the Wikipedia space. What did life look like before that? And then talk to us a little bit about what Lumino Digital does as well.
Yeah, so I honestly, I tripped and fell into this. Before I moved to the US, I worked in HR. And then when I moved over here to get married to my husband, a friend of his was setting up his own small agency at the time. And he had, at the large agency that he'd worked at, formed this niche around Wikipedia. And he wanted to go out and do that on his own. And I really joined just as like a back of house kind of person, just anything and everything that needed to be done, taking notes, sending invoices. And I just got into the research and preparation and doing like client work on the Wikipedia side of things. And that's really what I've been doing ever since. And then my partners and I founded Lumino back in 2020. We're a 2020 baby firm. There's a few of us out there who just like, I think lost our minds slightly during that COVID year. And we were like, this is a great time to start a business. Let's do that. So at Lumino, I lead our Wikipedia team. And so basically for the last, nearly 15 years at this point, I have been living Wikipedia for various clients from everywhere from giant companies to individuals who have Wikipedia pages or want them.
Yeah. Okay. So you've been working in the Wikipedia land since Wikipedia was what we knew it then, asking us for $2 a pop to read, to now what it is today, which is, wow, oh, so different. So talk to us about why Wikipedia is so in demand right now.
Okay, so it's really AI. Wikipedia has remained high value this entire time, really because of the way that search engines use the information from Wikipedia. They love it. They like the way that Wikipedia is organized. It is information rich. It is link rich. And so it's always pushed, every search algorithm pushes Wikipedia way up. So it had always been high value. But then when we come into this AI era, suddenly Wikipedia is structured in that exact way that all of these LLMs really like for all of like our who, what, why, when, where type of questions. What is this company? What do they do? Who is this person? Why should I know them? Wikipedia is great for answering those questions. And so you'll see it turn up as oftentimes it is the first citation that is listed in an AI overview, which is incredible. I think it's a testament to what the Wikipedia volunteer community have built.
Right.
It also really speaks to what is important for these AI chatbots, whatever you want to call them, these ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. It really speaks to what type of information works best for them. They really do like to see that very kind of nicely organized, like it's written in a way that easily and neatly answers the questions that people are asking. I'll come back around to that later on because I'm sure that we're going to talk about what if we don't have a Wikipedia, what can people do? So that's basically it. Is everyone suddenly realizing that if they have a Wikipedia page, it is turning up super often in those AI answers about them. And if they don't, then it is causing a bit of a gap, especially for, we hear a lot people who want to have Wikipedia pages because it will help them with their AI visibility. And it's not necessarily people searching for their organization specifically or for them personally. It's more those kind of broader questions where they might turn up, like top tech companies in Austin, those types of things, where people are suddenly feeling like if we don't have Wikipedia, that information isn't out there in a way that these LLMs are crawling. And so we are not turning up in those types of responses.
Yeah, and Wikipedia has always had authority, like you mentioned, and it really has always had strict guidelines. I mean, I remember 10 years ago having conversations with our clients about trying to get them a Wikipedia page. And even then, I mean, there were strict guidelines for us, for those who need more context, is we do PR for B2B SaaS and AI companies. And so they're looking to us to secure press coverage. What press coverage can we secure that will help them get a Wikipedia page and make them authoritative? And the bar was high then. From what I understand, the bar is really high now. And one of the reasons that we looked to Lumino is because we kept getting these questions from our clients. Well, like they say, well, we have this feature and we have this mention in top tier and like this should be enough. And the reality is it's not enough to get the media secured that Wikipedia would deem worthy and enough to have a new page. I mean, it's really hard, specifically for these emerging high growth companies that we work with when you're a public co, right? So talk to us about from a media standpoint, is why is it so difficult? What do you need to have in order to even consider getting a page?
Yeah, and it's sort of a perfect storm, really, because it's both changes on Wikipedia in terms of what that Wikipedia community wants to see and how strictly they follow those guidelines, but also changes in the media landscape that make it much harder to get the type of coverage that Wikipedia editors want to see. So in terms of, what Wikipedia wants to see, over time, they've kind of graduated towards wanting more and more in-depth coverage for companies. And I'd say companies and business people are the ones that are hardest to place Wikipedia pages about, because for a lot of other topics, there are really specific other things that you can do that would qualify you for a page. Say you're an actor or you're a sports person. There are these other criteria that come into play. So you don't necessarily need to have as much kind of really detailed media coverage in like a giant outlet. Likewise, academics as well. But if you are a company, they are looking for there to be signs that basically you are broadly well known. So what does that mean? They want to see mainstream media coverage and they want to see detailed mainstream coverage. So those like really big like profile style pieces that you used to get in like Fortune and Forbes and in like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, that go into a lot of detail and that are all written from the journalist's perspective, not with a lot of quotes or like according to the company, that's what Wikipedia editors want to see. At the same time, like there are fewer and fewer journalists out there. It's not the type of content that plays well anymore. People like shorter form content. You might have a nice fortune piece, but it's only 3 paragraphs long.
Right.
And one of those is a big quote from someone at your organization. From a PR perspective, that's amazing coverage. What great coverage that is. For Wikipedia's perspective, they're like, it's not significant.
Right.
And it can feel really harsh to companies as well when we're coming back and we're saying, yes, you've got this and you've got this, but it doesn't actually qualify you for Wikipedia because they want to see this really deep, detailed coverage that says like, you know, what your company is, where you're based, why you're important. That's the big one.
In a tier 1 outlet is really what they're looking for, which anyone who's in comms or PR listening understands how difficult that is. I mean, that's difficult for really the vast majority of companies. I mean, certainly even as a public company to get a, feature on your company, is still tough. But for privately held companies, no matter how incredible your AI tech is, to get multiple of those stories is really difficult. So it's been tough for us too as an agency because it's like, it's like then their clients look at us like, well, get us the feature in the Wall Street Journal. It's like the Wall Street Journal does not do features about startups your size or companies of your size or a product release. The last time, please show me, but it doesn't happen. So it sort of puts us in a pickle, but the rules of Wikipedia are certainly more stringent now because everybody wants a Wikipedia page.
Then I think that's the case. I think it is that demand. So Wikipedia does not want to end up just being a listing for every single company that exists. So they're pushing back against that.
So outside of, media coverage standpoint, where you need to have in-depth features about your company, multiple of them, what else does a company need to showcase to Wiki to get a page?
That's really it. That's the main thing. If you have an amazing award of some kind, and I would say this is really tricky for companies because what Wikipedia editors think of as being an award that's big enough to be able to qualify you for a Wikipedia page is not what most companies would consider a significant award. It's what they would consider to be an incredible, like, who gets that kind of award.
Innovative, 20 most innovative.
They're talking about like your Time Magazine's Innovation of the Year type of thing. Like that's basically it. Those types of things where it's essentially like you're the equivalent of an Academy Award. That's feedback that we've seen.
Awards aren't going to cut it. And when it comes to the tier 1 in-depth features, they're looking for more than one?
Yes, they want to see. So there's no like hard and fast rule on this, but typically Wikipedia editors will ask, what are your best 3 sources? So they want to see that you don't just have one major feature piece and then that's it. They want to see that there has been multiple pieces that have gone in depth about you. So we typically say, we want to see ideally at least 3.
Yep.
If we have more, that's great. It'll help to fill in a lot of gaps, give us something to write from for Wikipedia.
How do they feel about contributed content pieces? I'm thinking for example, that we secured non-paid. It wasn't like a paid profile, but awesome piece about bias in AI from the CEO of one of our companies that went through editorial review and got placed in Fast Company. How does Wikipedia feel about that?
Oh, Lindsay, I think you know the answer to this question, and no one's going to love this, but Wikipedia does not like contributor content. And it's basically because there are real differences in what people consider to be like an appropriate contributor for these different outlets. And some of them it's pay to play. Some of them it's just like anyone who turns up and signs up for an account can be a contributor to these outlets. And so Wikipedia just says, no, there's no editorial oversight, no kind of blanket thing we can say that applies to these contributors. So just no contributor content is allowed.
Right.
And it's, again, like, to me, it's interesting because I had a lot of questions this year from people saying, well, what about Substack? Because you have a lot of journalists now who are moving to Substack and to similar platforms, basically selling their own content directly. And these are oftentimes like very experienced journalists, but then you're losing what Wikipedia editors want, which is that layer of editorial oversight and fact checking.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you just have a journalist who's out on their own and producing content, you don't have that kind of sense that it's definitely all going to be correct.
No.
Which, I mean, we know from a practical perspective, like even your real high tier sources, they can get things incorrect. Wikipedia is just doing the best it can.
Yeah.
The editors are just doing what they can to try and say, like, as much as possible, we are picking sources that are going to be correct. Or at least if they are incorrect, they would get a correction printed if this is really wrong.
With the media landscape changing and the newsroom shrinking, do you anticipate that Wikipedia will change their ways at all and start to look at maybe more of the non-traditional media outlets? Because it seems like the bar is staying really high in an area that has changed so much. Do you anticipate there being any changes to that?
Oh, on a sort of blanket basis, it's hard to say because if anything, it seems like they're becoming a little bit more strict about what types of sources to accept and which not. They oftentimes will look at individual sources, on a sort of case by case basis to say, do they fit? Do they not fit? One of the things that they've been looking out for recently is, are outlets using AI as to contribute to their pieces, to fully write pieces? And then they're starting to actually exclude some outlets that they previously had allowed on that basis, because if there is no standard way by which those outlets are noting which ones have AI in and which don't, how can Wikipedia make sure that every piece is actually human checked and fully accurate?
Right.
So if anything, things are getting a little bit more strict. I do feel like that sort of element of the independent journalists, we do see that there are discussions about those being used and when they could and could not. So perhaps there'll be a shift on that in the future.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think about when we started our agency, it was pre-iPhone, pre-social media. So definitely dating myself. But it used to be where a reporter, tier one outlet could write a story. It would, we saw this at one time. It literally crashed our client's website. They had so much traffic coming. And I don't know, think about it today. It's I don't know if journalists understand the power so at these tier one outlets, the power that a feature story can have now. It's always been valuable. I'm not saying that. Certainly you get any sort of feature in the Wall Street Journal or insert whatever Wikipedia deems tier one. That in and of itself is valuable. But I don't know if they realize now what gold that is, because that could be the third thing that a brand needs to get listed in Wikipedia, that now appears at the top of the LLM searches, that now has prospects looking more at their product. So it really has a lot of weight. Do you think journalists realize that realize that that's their role right now at these?
I hope that they do. It would be nice to know that they were being compensated in line with that. The fact, the importance of their work. It does just feel like in the last 10 years, it's been all doom and gloom coming out of the media world. So that little idealist part of me would love for there to be kind of a renaissance of journalism through AI, the idea that people want to search out that human-made, deeply researched type of material again.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of compensation, is Wikipedia's model the way that it's always been?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, they're still nonprofit. Yeah.
Okay. Do you anticipate that ever changing? Because
oh my goodness,
they could really, really be monetizing the platform right now. And I understand there's integrity behind nonprofit, but do you think that they'll change their business model at all, given the demand right now?
I don't think so, because it's such the whole platform is very ideals driven, and that has been the structure all along. So Wikipedia itself is the website, and it's run by a nonprofit called the Wikimedia Foundation. So the Wikimedia Foundation, they are the ones who govern it. They do all the stuff to kind of run the behind the scenes element of the site. And I think that people that's really been a huge part of the value of Wikipedia, is this idea that it does remain independent. It doesn't take much to fund it. So the fundraisers that happen all the time, like they're great and they're keeping the site well funded. I'm sure that people would try and buy it if they could. I just worry that at this point, it does feel like people really want there to be something that's out there that's totally independent.
Yeah.
That is not like owned by a singular person. And Wikipedia does fulfill that need.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll stay true to it, because now would be the time to figure out a different way to monetize it with so much demand. Okay, so it's harder than ever to get a Wikipedia page. So marketers, all you that are listening, pressure's on to your PR agencies. We understand. But also the realities of getting 3 in-depth feature stories in tier 1 press is really a challenge. If you can't get a Wikipedia page of your own, are there any other things that brands can do to help themselves on Wikipedia to show up in other ways? Any other value drivers if it's not having your own page?
There are several, and it really depends on your type of business. Something that we've seen real interest in the last couple of years, and I think this is, again, largely AI driven. And it's something that we used to hear a lot about in the past, and then it's kind of come back around again. But it's updating pages that are related to the organization. So whether that's like a particular technology that has a Wikipedia page, or like some sort of industry terminology. Maybe it is a page about the sector that they're in, the type of organization that they are. And folks are looking at those pages and saying, okay, well, actually, it would help us to have these pages be updated, because if people are looking up information about us, they're saying, okay, well, what does this mean? And they want there to be like good information that's coming up from that. And if it's pulling from Wikipedia, you don't want it to be that outdated information. And this is actually great because a lot of those sort of, we call them topic pages, which is sort of a good catch-all umbrella for these, but they're often outdated because it's just like at some point, someone with like a vague interest in this subject has created a page about it. Maybe when it first kind of became a thing, maybe they like read an article about it, whatever it might be, but then they don't tend to get updated very much. And so a lot of the details can kind of be woolly or no longer correct, or there's like a lot of things missing about how things have developed over time. So we're definitely seeing a lot of interest in updating those types of pages. And I do think that's really helpful to companies. So if your company creates a certain thing, develops a certain thing, and you know there's a Wikipedia page about thing, go and take a look at it, see if it needs to be fixed. It's a good place to start.
Okay, that's interesting. So if you are supply chain software,
yes,
for example, there might be a wiki page on supply chain software.
Yep.
Perhaps it hasn't been updated with any like AI messaging that now supply chain relies heavily on AI orchestration, etc., so that it would be worth going in and obviously not talking about inserting your company, but at least suggesting language around the AI use cases of supply chain software, benefits of it, maybe linking to an outside article about that. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly that. Making sure that there are good sources that are part of those pages, making sure that it does have that up-to-date information, especially if there's been a big change, like, for example, your supply chain software and like the pivot to AI and the different use cases. Maybe it's missing an entire use case within that article that doesn't talk about like the way that supply chain affects a particular industry where it's in fact really huge, and you'd want that to be included. Now, for any of those types of updates, we always need there to be sourcing, but because it's an article that already exists, you're not having to look for a tier 1 source on that. An industry source that's well written, that is fact checked, that's, otherwise like a nice kind of rigorous piece will be great.
That's good to know. So you could link to a supply chain dive article, for example. Would it be wise to link to a supply chain dive article that mentions your company and trying to like work it that way?
It's possible to do that. I wouldn't sort of necessarily look at going into it to like only use pieces that mention your company. if it happens to do that, that's a good benefit. You have to sort of also be careful what you wish for on this, because if it seems like every piece that you're putting in mentions your company in some way, Wikipedia editors are going to notice that and they're going to push back on that, not want to do it. Right. So, yeah.
Okay. And is there any, I guess, as a Wikipedia contributor, let's say people are listening, they've literally never contributed anything to Wikipedia. Do the editors look at that as saying, okay, this is the first time you've ever made an update, try to contribute? Do they weight that as like a new contributor, as we need to like look at this more closely?
So if you're coming in from a company, you should always be approaching it as like you're there with a conflict of interest. So this is where Wikipedia's conflict of interest guidelines come into play. So I wouldn't recommend that any companies or anyone like there on behalf of a company go in and just start making these changes. What you want to do is set up a Wikipedia account, disclose, what organization you're there on behalf of, and then use a request to ask for those updates to be made. Being transparent about it, that's actually going to help, because it means that editors aren't going to later on be suspicious and remove it and throw up flags and all kinds of things. What you want to do is just be super transparent upfront. Like, this article has a lot of information in it that relates to the industry in which our company works. We noticed that it's super outdated. It doesn't have anything about XYZ. I've found these sources. I've written something up. Can this be added to the page?
Okay. I love that approach, being a contributor or requesting edits and updates most specifically, because I wouldn't be surprised if, specifically when I think about our clients, the industries in which they play, that they haven't been updated. I even think about like recruiting software. Like every industry has been upended by AI, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those pages don't have anything about that. And the challenges now that are coming up with AI recruiting, for example, where are you talking to a human? Are you not? With bias that's happening with AI recruiting software. I really like that approach. If you can't get a page yourself, you can at least try to inform the topic pages that your company is associated with. But what do you see as the future, looking ahead with Wikipedia, looking ahead with brands? How do you see this sort of shaking out next 5 years?
Oh, such a great question. I would say that I feel like we are in a really interesting space right now where these LLMs, it feels like we have flung ourselves into them very, very quickly over the last couple of years. And now it's already part of most people's kind of everyday life. Like, even if you didn't want to come across AI, you're finding it. Gemini is giving you little snippets of responses in your Google search, all those types of things. I feel like we are going to see some big changes over the next 5 years, and it's hard to know exactly which way they will go. There's the version in which we continue down the AI path, in which case that's going to still be a really high emphasis on what is feeding into those. And I think that we're going to see a lot of competition between sites that are feeding into those AI results a lot. We're already getting a lot of questions about Grokkapedia, which itself is, all of Grokkapedia is AI-based content that then occasionally gets edited by an individual or a series of individuals. Who knows? It's still a little bit of a mystery there. But I think that there'll be other sites that will try and come in and try to have an influence on those LLM responses. And then there's the future in which there's a backlash against AI and people want more like human-driven content again, in which case does Wikipedia come back around as like, okay, well, this is the original like human-driven site. Like, everyone who's contributing to the site is an individual. It's very much independent. It's very much like this mass editing project that's been happening for many years now. So I'm really excited for the next 5 years to see which way it goes and to see how we develop in terms of whether we're still using AI the same ways, whether we're still looking at journalism and at human-driven sourcing in the same way. But I'm hoping that Wikipedia doesn't try to cater too much to AI.
Right.
I'm hoping that they do try to keep it the way that it currently is.
Well, you're definitely in a really interesting and good space right now with Lumino. I'm sure that you are getting a lot of questions, a lot of inbounds. And, God bless Wiki for staying strong, man. They have a lot of integrity. They could be, totally monetizing, making it easier, doing all the things that most businesses would do, but they're staying true to their nonprofit roots and their integrity. So have to give them a round of applause for that. But, meanwhile, we're over here on the PR side with people saying, why don't we have enough to get into Wikipedia? Where's all our feature stories? So we'll keep fighting the good fight over here too. Is there anything that we didn't tackle that you want to make sure that we cover about Wikipedia today?
Not necessarily about Wikipedia, but we have been getting a lot of questions about Wikidata lately. And I'm sure that's on, some listeners' minds, perhaps, especially as like an alternative to Wikipedia. We know that my team has been looking out for this for a while. We've seen a lot of advice lingering around that's like, oh, if you can't have Wikipedia, maybe you should get Wikidata instead. We're, I would say, on the skeptical side of the impact of Wikidata. Again, people are really pushing this as this can help you with AI. What Wikidata is a database of statements. So where Wikipedia helps to answer like those big questions that you might be thinking of for what you're putting into AI, like your who's, what's, why's, where, when's, all those types of things. Wikidata is not going to do that so much because it only has like little kind of snippets of information. But it does really help in connecting ideas and making sure that you're getting the correct response in terms of like the right company that you're wanting to know about, the right topic that you're looking to hear about. So if you have an issue currently where your company or an executive or whatever is getting confused in search, like there are responses coming up that are about other people instead, then Wikidata might be helpful for that. It might be a good thing to pursue. There is a slightly lower bar for entry on Wikidata compared to Wikipedia. You don't have to have, like, you have to have some sourcing, but you don't have to have as like deep sourcing to be able to have a Wikidata entry. But you're not going to get that level of information that you get on Wikipedia. So this is not going to be a place where you're going to be telling your brand history and getting out a lot of detail about what it is that you do. But it is really useful if you're having a specific issue of like confusion or not turning up in searches for certain types of things.
Are you seeing that Wikidata is getting sourced in the LLMs at all?
No, we haven't. We've been checking and looking into this. We've also been doing a lot of dives into, have there been any studies of this? Has anyone been looking at this? Because there's an awful lot of content out there that you can find that talks about what citations different LLMs rely on. And so there's a huge body of material out there that talks about the importance of Wikipedia. I can pull out a half a dozen statistics around that really quickly, but there's nothing like that for Wikidata. Yeah. So I feel like it's not something that our firm is really pushing. It's like, oh, you don't have Wikipedia, you should be getting Wikidata. There are times when this is going to be useful for you, but it's not necessarily going to do that same thing. And it certainly doesn't seem to be turning up as a citation in the same way that Wikipedia does.
So no downside on Wikidata, but no. TBD on true benefits.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's something to like pin your hopes on. Yeah. Probably better to keep going after like some nice media coverage, making sure your website has a good FAQs section, that the way that you structure information on your website is answering the questions that you're expecting that people will be asking in LLMs.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you for clearing up some of the questions that I had. I'm sure that this will be a highly listened to episode because this is on everybody's mind right now. I end our episodes the same way. I realize neither of us have a cocktail, but my final question is always if you have a favorite or signature toast to send us out. So I don't know if this is something from the UK potentially that is a favorite of yours, but I've had cheers in every different language. I've had all sorts of different toasts, but do you have one that you particularly like?
Oh my goodness. I think I'm just real basic. I'm just a cheers girl.
So am I. It's okay. Yeah. Nothing wrong with cheers, but cheers. Thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks again to Rhi for joining me on SaaS Half Full. Great conversation. Hopefully you took a few things away about trying to get a Wikipedia page. Woo! It is hard out there, people. Really appreciate the listen. And until next time, bottoms up.